Well, it's a spring morning, spring afternoon, in fact, and Pat McCart is going to bring a beam of sunshine further into our lives. How are you, Pat?
I'm grand, Jude. How are you? In fairness, it's a beautiful day
full
here.
of the joys of spring.
I was watching the BBC just before we came on air, and a guy was on saying this is meteorologically, this is the last few hours of winter, and he says that from here on in, they expect the weather to start improving. And Jude, today's beautiful.
Oh, fantastic! Of course, Ireland always jumps the gun because we say that the law of Bridge is that is the St. Bridget's Day is the first day of spring, which it isn't. Well, it sort of is, I think, in a way, but
psychologically, it probably
psychologically it gives you hope. There's no change of temperature, but it gives you hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some serious matters here. Needless to say, everybody bloody well talking about the COVID and the effects it's having, and we're going to have to do the same thing, because you drew my attention to the fact that really there is a marked difference between people just a few miles from you in Derry, say, and how they're getting the vaccine, how frequently or how early, and across the UK, I suppose, and the case in the south of Ireland. Yeah. Speak on, Pat. Tell me more.
It's a very simple thing. I got a WhatsApp message from a friend. I think it was Friday or Saturday, can't remember. But he said he's living in Derry. He's originally from Donegal, and he is in his 50s or mid-50s, I would reckon. And he's got the jab. He got it last week sometime. His mother, who lives in Donegal, she's in her 90s. She still hasn't got it. There's another friend who's a former broadcaster who sent me a wee text the other day as well. Said his mother, who lives in South Donegal, she's in her 90s. She still hasn't got it. Now, here's the thing, Jude. I think I read somewhere, I think it was in Irish Times, maybe on Saturday, that the latest figures for last week was only about 4% of the people in the south of Ireland had got their jab, their first, where that figure in Northern Ireland was 20%. Now, last week as well, Robin Swan announced that anybody over 50 who was a carer could also make an appointment to get the jab. So it looks like, and the rollout in Britain, I think the NHS has absolutely surpassed itself. It's done a brilliant job in the rollout in regard to this. And, Jude, I think when this is all over, and I've said this, Jesus, so many times, that the health system in the Republic, where we spend an absolute arm on a leg, is definitely not fit for purpose. It means well. Now, today there was the guy, Paul, I can't remember his first name, he's the guy in charge of the HSE. He's saying that there's going to be 100,000 vaccinations this week, and he hopes to have 1 million by, I think, the end of May. Jude, by the end of June, Denmark, which is about the same size as Ireland, hopes to have its entire population vaccinated. So, Jude, now I am not an expert in vaccinations or rollouts or the mechanics of all this, but there's something tells me that we are not doing particularly well, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how it is. And sometimes, but by the way, as well, the final point on me, see, there are more leaks from the Irish government than there would be in the average civ. Everybody's saying everything, and nobody knows, and it's not good for public confidence. The last thing they're saying today is this 5K limit could be here until about July. Jude, that is that's killing people. Anyway, that's as far as I want to go at the minute.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
I noticed actually that Micheál Martin said that the pubs wouldn't, what he called the hospitality sector, would not be getting anywhere until about July, I think.
Yeah. He said midsummer, so I presume that's June, July. Yeah. Say again.
I saw some of the figures, knowing you're going to bring this up, Pat. I looked at some of the figures. Now, these are a wee bit further back, like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, but the UK certainly had vaccinated something like 19% of its population.
Yeah.
Whereas on that same date, the EU had vaccinated something like 1.5% of its population, which is terrible stark figures, and it's really too bad. I think there's a danger with this, though, that Boris Johnson has made a screw up, in my opinion, of the entire fight against COVID, but he's really scored a goal with this one. So absolutely. I'm wondering, is this going to be World Cup 1966 in pandemic terms? Are we going to be hearing about
absolutely.
this?
Watch the Sun on the Telegraph. Boris Boris scores for Britain and whatever. Yeah,
But they keep replaying these figures forever, I'm sure.
Yeah.
A couple of points that I discovered also was AstraZeneca did a deal with the EU where they were going to deliver them 80 million doses. They only delivered something like, I don't know, 20?
I think
25,
was
something like that.
It was around about 20-25% of what they originally promised.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous. You see, if you're depending on people to get for the rollout, you're not to blame if they screw you up. And I think that actually prompted
by the way, just to cut across you there, AstraZeneca, how the British government got ahead of the EU is number one. They cut the corners. They ordered it without the full trial. Secondly, they have insured AstraZeneca against public civil liability. The EU haven't. And I can't remember. There's a third factor involved there. Off the top of my head, just skipped it right now. But the EU were slower. But they, if there's anything goes wrong, AstraZeneca are responsible for it. And Britain, they won't be. They have got an immunity from the British government. So, the third thing, sorry, Jude, was the British government paid way over the price. The EU demanded a fair price. So, okay, Boris can take it. Now, Jude, see, in maybe 5 years, they discovered it wasn't as effective as they thought it would be, or there's problems. It mightn't be the great victory that everybody thinks it is right now.
That's
by the way.
Yeah, I think you have to feed those factors in. They're quite important to do, because otherwise you just say Britain did a terrific job, which they did do, and the EU did a rotten job because they're the EU. It wasn't because they're the EU, as you say. The EU played very safe. They wanted to make absolutely sure that these vaccinations were going to work and they were going to be safe to inject into people. They had to make sure that they had a fair and equitable distribution across the EU. And that's quite a task. That's 27 countries, not 2 or 3. They made sure they did it, as you say, at a reasonable price. They did a deal because they were buying in bulk, and they insisted on getting a decent terms for it. And the other thing that hasn't been mentioned is somebody did a survey of that. This isn't one jab, it's 2 jabs. You're not really properly inoculated till you get that second jab. Now, if you look at some of the figures, at least in this report that I was looking at a few weeks back, the countries like Denmark, which you mentioned, and if I get some other country, maybe I think
it's Luxembourg, Jude. They're actually much. When you're talking the second jab, they're actually ahead of Britain.
Better than Britain's.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, all I'm saying is that you need to put those factors in as well. Otherwise, it makes it look like everybody should leave the EU, because otherwise they'll not be able to do anything, especially in terms of health.
No, Jude, something while this, put it like this. Sometimes the slow person wins the race. The hare and the tortoise. That Britain's pulled off like a Ferrari and a Grand Prix. But hey, Jude, that's not to say down the road it won't get cut.
Well, as somebody who's benefited from it myself, I wouldn't want to underplay what they've
done.
No,
neither would I. And Jude, I really genuinely, and I mean it, I sincerely hope that everybody in Britain, what's happened to them, the rollout, I hope it turns out to be massively successful.
But Pat, I wonder what is the reason that not just in the south of Ireland, but right throughout the EU, that they were so far behind. And I've given some reasons. One was they made a good deal. They saw they didn't pay over the going rate.
Odds,
they went for safety. They went for fair distribution. All these countries. That's not really sufficient to explain it? Just the same, is it?
No, Jude. Like for instance, in Ireland, we have discussed this in the past about if we want to, if their border pool, one of the things we would need, and if we were really talking seriously about unity, we need a proper health system. Well, Jude, one thing certainly, civil servants in the Republic of Ireland and the politicians are going to have to seriously sit down and have a look at our health service. We are spending an absolute, Jude, our spend on health is unbelievable. Yet our outcomes are not that good. The services not that good. The facilities aren't all that great. You know, we need a health service based on the NHS model, and possibly, I think there's a Dutch model they reckon we should be looking at, which is very effective. Jude, here, sorry, here, let me throw something. When we were in Spain some years ago, Rosie, my wife, hurt her shoulder. On a Sunday afternoon, we went down to the local hospital. We were in within 5 minutes, seeing a guy. She got the health, what do you call it, an X-ray. She got someone else, and we were out. And she was given a prescription for a painkiller and whatever. Jude, within about 90 minutes, the nearest hospital to me, well, it would be out in the Galvin, but the nearest one within this jurisdiction is Letterkenny. If you on a normal weekend, if you go up there and you've had an accident or anything, you can sit for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours in A&E before you're seen. Now tell me, what's the difference? We're both members of the EU. We're both spending big sums of money on the system. Why does one work and why does the other not?
Yeah, yeah. Well, funny you mentioned that your wife was injured. My wife was injured when we were on holidays, not on holidays, overseeing her son in the States. And I had to go to, as quickly as possible, to the nearest doctor or pharmacy or whatever it was called. It was a GP or whatever was working there. So we went in, and the first thing they asked us was, where's your insurance? Okay, where's your credit card? We're taking the number of that credit card. Went into the doctor, and Maureen had to get some stitches in her leg because she bashed into, I think. And the doctor said, well, I'm going to put in 3 stitches. It really needs 4 or 5, but that'll cost you an extra £200 or $200 or something. Jeez. Everything was calculated in terms of how much it's going to cost, and it certainly did bloody cost. What's more, so you realize how precious a health system really is, and how important it is, just simply for people's sense of security. That when they get sick, when they're damaged in some way, that all the resources of the state will be used to help them to get better, and they won't have to be diving into their pocket or stinting on their treatment because it's going to cost them too much. I wonder, Pat, you've said several times now that the South's health system has more money pumped into it than God knows how many countries.
Yeah.
What's happening there? I read somewhere that it was they were starting from a very low base, and there was a lot of old hospitals, and therefore they had to.
There's that as well, Jude. There is, but Jude, the other thing as well is we have been knighted by this dual system. There's a big, heavy private and healthcare system in the Republic, and a lot of our dual facilities. In other words, consultants can see private patients as well as public patients, and there are all sorts of. Hey, Jude, I was sitting beside a consultant many years ago in London, and I've told this story before. This is a true story. He was an Irish guy, and he asked me what did I do, and I said I was a journalist. And he says, and he got absolutely nasty right away, and he says, "Oh, you people are good for nothing." And I says, "What do you mean by that?" He said he had been working in Ireland, an Irish guy, and left. He says Dick Turpin had the decency to wear a mask, which is more than he could say for some of his colleagues. Now that was actually said to me at a table at a private function in London. In other words, he said the consultants and the Republic of Ireland were ripping the system off, and he says everybody was bowing and scraping to them. Now, whether he had a personal agenda, that I don't know, but that's a long time ago.
Well, if they are ripping the country off or the state off, then I think it's up to the government to do something about it. Wasn't Pierce Doherty doing some investigation of insurance companies?
And sure, I hear just this one at you. The doctors delivering the jab in the NHS are getting £12.50. The doctors in the Republic are getting €60. 25 per jab and £10 processing fee. Or €10 processing fee.
Yeah. But that still doesn't answer the question of why, with all the money being pumped in, the system isn't up to scratch still.
But Jude, I really can't answer it. I'm not an expert in health. I just don't know. I remember reading some time back that we are spending the same as Germany per capita, but our outcomes are nowhere near as effective.
Yeah, I've come across that as well. I think it comes down in the end to the fact that they probably are starting from a low base. That a lot of the facilities weren't good, and therefore they're having to put money into building like the children's hospital in the south that they're
Jude,
protecting.
come on, that is the world's most expensive hospital, and like, go on, tell me what has gone wrong there. But anyway, if
you
you're
see
saying you're probably labeling somebody.
Yeah, that would have a knock-on effect. You see, the next political party that thought of building health facilities would think twice and would be very careful.
This one's going to be it's going to be the most expensive hospital in the world. It's going to cost somewhere in the region of 2.2 billion. When it's funny, a hospital costing 2.2 billion, 2,200 million.
Pat, I'll tell you something. You're talking about the consultants and them making a killing on these things. Not killing, that's not the word I want, but they're making a lot of money on this system. And you're talking about these guys building a hospital and then doubling and trebling and quadrupling the price. But frankly, I don't blame them. I don't blame them, because if a system isn't set up and it says you can make a lot of money doing this, it'll take a funny man not to actually say, yeah, okay, I'll go with that. So I blame the way the system is set up.
Yeah, so I can argue with that.
If you have this system which allows consultants to make huge sums of money at the expense of the public ultimately, then change the system.
Yeah,
likewise with contractors for new buildings.
Yeah, well, there's a guy on RTE one day, and he's consulting, and the report, it was one of those social current affairs. And the guy said, well, look, sir, you're going to be earning €250,000 a year. And he says, he sort of referred to it as chicken feed. In other words, he could make so much more out in the private, you know. So there was an arrogance there.
But you know that I know, Pat, that if either of us had the chance to make that kind of money and we're in that field, we probably would go after it. I would anyway. If you set up a system, it's human nature will take advantage of it if they can. The thing is to have a system that doesn't tempt you in that way.
Oh, isn't it a great thing? The Hippocratic Oath really means make money, as much money as you can.
No, I think, but I think, well, I remember talking to a doctor. I was sequestered with him one time on a plane, and I said to him, why did he become a doctor? Was it, did he feel he wanted to help people? He said, no, there's good money. I said, any number of people pick jobs because there's good money in them. That's just human nature,
That's human nature.
Yeah, they're doing. Okay, well, listen, let's move on. I think we've squeezed this particular orange dry. And your term vaccine envy was quite good, I thought, where people are forever making. And in fact, Arlene Foster has already, and she's our next item. Arlene Foster has said that the quick rollout in the UK of the vaccine was an example of the benefits of being in the UK. And only a madman would vote for Irish unity. What does it mean, removing them from the UK?
Yeah.
Okay, Arlene and what we will call the legal case. Arlene Foster and the DUP, of course, are very, very upset about this border in the Irish Sea. Because you remember, Theresa May said, be no way we would take the border out of Ireland and put it in the Irish Sea, and no Prime Minister would ever do such a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she was kicked out, and Boris came in and said, I would never. And he went to the I was going to say the RDA, the conference for the DUP. And there was lots of photo shoots, him and Arlene looking down from a balcony. Anyway, the fact is that Boris did the deal with the EU, and that involves the Irish Protocol, as they call it, which involves having a border, effectively a border in the Irish Sea, as far as checking on goods coming from and going to the EU. She says they're going to be taking it because they're taking a legal case as well as working politically at it. And they're actually going to be talking about it right now, Pat.
Yeah, as we speak.
As we speak. They are speaking in the House of Commons. Because they got enough signatures to have it raised as a question. And she says that fundamental to the Act of Union, anything else,
1800 or
whatever it was, 1801, is unfettered trade throughout the United Kingdom, and that's a breach of it. She says it's a breach also of the Belfast Agreement, because the Belfast Agreement, or the Good Friday Agreement, says there will be a principle of consent. And she says that the protocol has driven what she calls a horse a coach on horses through both the Active Union and the Good Friday Agreement. Is she right?
Actually, I should see the legal points as you know. There's some of them are, but arcane or whatever you like to call them. 1800. Jesus, Jude, give us a break. This was signed in 2020. This deal, right? That's the first. Now, Jude, a couple of things. Simon Hoare, I think that's the guy's name. He's the chairman of the British Irish Committee. And he is already. He has described as hugely regrettable the court action. Let's be honest, Britain and Europe are not going to renege on the Article 16, the protocol. They spent 4 years negotiating it. And the unionism, they're saying there are many benefits of it for unions because they're going to have a foot in both camps, so on. And Jude, here's the final point. They're not, by the way, the EU are not going to, and they're simply not going to renew that. But the final point is, Jude, there are nearly 1.9 million people living in Northern Ireland. The DUP launched this campaign, this petition. 142,000 people signed it. That's it. Hardly, an overwhelming response. So they're pretty much, it's a sort of a lump thing. And by the way, there's a guy called Ben Beebs joined him. I heard him on RTE last week or the week before. He's an absolute out and out right wing Brexit. He wanted the hard Brexit right away. He's one of these people believe. I think he's got rose-colored, despite his name. I take it he would like Britain to be an imperial power again, and all this sort of stuff. And when I see Jim Allister and all the rest of them, the Alliance Party are refusing to join. The SDLP are refusing to join this, and without question, Sinn Féin. So it's basically union. And Jude, it's not about the protocol. It's all about this identity politics or constitutional issue. It's got bugger all to do with the Article 16. That if the two governments sat down, or the EU and the UK sat down, they could ease a lot of this stuff and work it out. So it's all to do with the optics of this deal rather than the protocol
Neil
itself.
Martin advised them to dial down the rhetoric. As we have to put politics aside and deal with the issues within an economic, social, and practical context. Well, I'm going to just put myself in Arlene's shoes for a moment, and in a way, I don't know if I'd act differently myself if I was in her shoes, because Pat, and I know that the Irish protocol.
Dude, there's someone's just come into my head. You in high heels just wouldn't look right. Go ahead.
It's a hairstyle. That's what I have the problem with the hairstyle. Anyway,
sorry, go ahead.
But the fact is that if you have as you have in this international agreement between the EU and the Great Britain, if you have the Irish border and the Irish Sea, more and more Ireland is going to be treated as one unit, as I think it should be. But if I'm a unionist, I wouldn't think that. I'll think that's a bloody bad thing. So I think Arlene sees this. She knows what the long-term consequences are, and so do the other DUP people, and they're going to work might and main to try to change it. I don't think they're going to work, as you say. And anyway, there's so many other factors are pushing the opposite direction from unionism that it's not really going to work. And final point is this, and this is the most ironic of all. Why is there an Irish protocol? There's an Irish protocol because of Brexit. And who was the midwife of Brexit? The DUP.
There's a lovely, what do you call it, word, coucheurs. That means a male attendant at a birth. I always thought the DUP were the main attendants at the birth of Brexit, because they pushed for it. Nigel Dodge was never, and they loved that when they had the whip hand and holding the Tory government account. And remember the arrogance of Arlene saying that she was going to send Boris to the naughty step. I know a sort of a tail wagging a dog. The wee DUP telling the British Prime Minister what they were going to do. Now, arrogance or pride cometh before a fall. 3-4 years ago, Northern Ireland was sliding into a very nice. The Fenians were starting to settle down because of the Good Friday Agreement. Things were moving along nicely. The DUP couldn't leave it alone. They had to have this top dog thing. Oh, Brexit, because we can be more British and so on. And all you sort of go, you've got your comeuppance. Like it's hard to think anything other than karma. See, when you're that arrogant, and basically, Jude, let's be honest, there was a serious degree of stupidity here. you should have left well enough alone.
Yeah. Well, there was I mean, shortly before that, I mean, how long? 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe. I remember people talking, commentators talking about how astute the DUP were. And even
Yeah, the
British
great
commentators
negotiators.
commentating and
Yeah,
saying, oh, they really drove a hard deal. So you had this
yeah,
stereotypical image of the Northerner who was
yeah.
no nonsense, hard-knuckled negotiator, and who really nobody was going to pull wool over their eyes.
Their eyes, yeah, exactly.
Whereupon Boris Johnson says, I am a unionist and I'm at your conference, and whoa, and they'll cheer.
Yes, we will never do this. We will never,
and then he turns around and does it. So I think the myth of the canny, shrewd, tough-knuckled DUP as negotiator has been blown permanently out of the water with this one. And I'm sorry to say, but I'm feeling just a touch of Schadenfreude this afternoon.
Exactly. Hey, Jude, just we didn't mention last week, but if you read Max Hastings' article on Bloomberg, I know Max Hastings, the former editor of the Telegraph, the most right-wing, the old folkies, the old colonels. This is a guy who said it's about time Ireland was united, and it was a historic injustice, and the people of England really didn't give a monkeys about Northern Ireland. I think a lot of unionists should seriously sit down and have a real look at what he's saying.
Okay, here's a prophecy for you. Over the next year, you should keep a tally, Pat, or I will, some of the two of us, maybe both of us, of how many times do members of the DUP or the UUP or the TUV mention border poll and along with it, loyalist backlash. Because that is a card that's going to be played continually. Now, whether it's the truth or whether it's a threat or whether it's an effort to damp things down, I don't know. But that's a card that they've used always. When they're up against it, they've said, look out, you really could revoke the hard man. We wouldn't want that. But
yeah.
So anyway, there's that. We'll leave that. The fact of the matter is that the DUP have painted themselves into a corner. They shouldn't be bleeding about it because they're the ones that painted themselves
to quote yourself,
into a
they are the authors totally of this misfortune they find themselves in. And to use your term, Schadenfreude, you get what you deserve. Yeah.
Tough. Okay, Nicola Sturgeon is the last item today.
Hey, Jude, you sent me that one. What he calls Salmon is claiming that key documents were concealed by the Scottish government, from, not only to their own solicitors, but to his solicitors. But hey, I'm not sure what exactly Nicola's supposed to have done. She's supposed to have known about a lot of stuff and didn't disclose it. I am not sure. I'll bow to your expertise in this one.
Well, I'm not an expert, but cast your mind back, Pat. Do you remember the Profumo scandal?
Yeah.
Do you remember why Profumo was disgraced and had to resign?
Christine Keeler.
No. That's not why. That's not why. He lied to the government. He lied to the government. Didn't he? Lied in the House of Commons. That was the big sin.
Yeah.
It's okay to have floozies. It's okay to have prostitutes, especially if they're as good looking as Christine Keeler. But if you lied to the House of Commons, you've had it. Now,
isn't it this thing, Jude, called the Ministerial Code? That if you're found to be in breach on it, is that a legal thing or is that only a code of honor?
I don't know. I think it's a code of honor because there must have been, there's so many lies that have been told in the House of Commons.
How about Matt Hancock? A court has ruled against him and said that some of the contracts handed out for PPE. And he was on Andrew Marr yesterday morning and I was doing the best for the country. and the fact that it was all my friends got the contracts got nothing to do with it. That was a couple of years back he would have had to resign.
Don't forget he wasn't in the House of Commons when he said that. He was in a BBC studio. Anyway, the thing is, Nicola Sturgeon is being accused of having stood up in Parliament and told lies about when she knew, when she talked to Alex Salmond. In other words, she's in breach of this, breaking her ministerial code, and that's a resigning matter. Now, she strongly denies this. Anyway, on Wednesday, Salmond is going to be giving oral evidence to a group of Scottish MPs, and Who knows how that's going to work out?
Yeah.
One thing I know is this: there will be forces working beneath the radar who will be loving this, loving it, because the first thing you must get in any campaign, the split. And this looks possibly like a split.
Oh, this is civil war within within the family, the Scottish nationalists. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the hand of Westminster and they're fomenting this and the old media.
Yeah.
But salmon and sturgeon, Jesus, isn't that great? Like,
I know, it's odd, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I'll never get a, But anyway, they seem to hate each other with a passion. Now, whether he thought she screwed him by getting him out of office or taking over, now, Jude, I read some of the stuff, and I'm not quite sure what a big offence she's. Nicola Sturgeon she talked apparently to the permanent secretary, and there's some timeline where she might have known stuff and didn't know stuff, but I couldn't see the big crime in it. Either Salmon was guilty or he wasn't. What she didn't know.
But Pat, I think the way it'll be sold, or the way people will pick it up, is that Nicola Sturgeon did bad things that allowed Alex Salmond to be charged with a whole string of accusations and had to go through hell.
Turned out were not to be true.
And as it happened, they were all disproved or they were not proved. And people would think, oh, that was like Nicola Sturgeon did that. That's not the case. But that's the way it'll be painted. And I'd say the anti-Scottish independence people are dancing in the streets and rubbing their hands, because this could result in a lessened vote for the MS for the Scottish Nationalist Party, SNP, in the May elections, which are just around the corner.
Absolutely.
Now they're expected to do
you see, they were riding high, the SNP.
Oh, very.
In fact, they were almost certain, because Sturgeon has handled the old COVID thing pretty well. And as well as that, Jude, some of the rest of them, the Tories in Scotland. I think Ruth Davison might be back. She's very good. She's a Tory, but the Scottish Labour Party has gone to hell.
Oh, they're finished. They're finished. I think if they, it's hard to know. Tell me, what do you think? Do you think will the Scottish Nationalist Party come out with the huge majority that they're predicted or were predicted to have in May? Or will
I think they will. I think there's a real antipathy towards Boris Johnson, the old what do you call it, Wilmington Club, all that sort of stuff. The Scots really seriously hate him. I think, and he's the worst kind of Englishman. He's sort of like when any Scots person, when you check out some of the things Johnson has written about Scotland and Scottish people in the past, to come up now and sort of, I didn't mean that, no, not at all. That's not going to play. That, and it's like coming over and saying to ARLENE, "Oh, I'm a unionist. I will never do that." Like, they're not. Fool me once. Your problem. Fool me twice. My problem. Well, I don't think the Scots are going to buy that.
Yeah. Well, I can only hope that the Scots live up to their stereotype, which is sort of was shared in a way by the DUP, of being hard-knuckled, smart, shrewd.
Jesus, Jude, don't use that argument. You just proved it the other 2 minutes ago.
But the DUP,
it didn't work for them, did it?
The DUP don't know what they are, but the Scots know what they are. They know the difference between them and the English, that's for sure.
The canny Scots.
I'm going to be an optimist. I'm going to say the SNP is going to do very well in the election. And inside 2 years, there will be a referendum. And I'm going to say that Scotland will leave the UK.
I agree with you totally, because the last time when Cameron was in charge, the last plebiscites, or whatever you want to call it, vote, their whole premise was they were inside the EU, that they were given guarantees by Westminster that they would be looked after, there would be more democracy. None of that happened. When Boris Johnson took over, he tried to screw the whole situation. By the way, he almost tried to remove democracy, that his people were going to to hell with the Scots. And George Osborne, who was his former chancellor, has told Boris Johnson, no matter what happens, don't give Scotland the right to vote. Now, talk about throwing petrol on a fire.
Well, it's good advice. Don't give it to him, because you know what is going to happen. If there is another referendum, I'm pretty damn confident.
But Jude, if I was middle of the road, Scots guy, as some upper class eating twit actually saying that, And in other words, your democracy is of a lesser order than my democracy.
Of course it is. If you're a lesser breed without the law, then you're definitely your democracy is going to be not as good as mine. Oh well, we may just wait and see what happens.
What happens?
But we must remain optimistic. Spring is in the air.
Absolutely.
The air of change. There's a
It's
wind
in
of
the air.
change blowing through these islands.
Yes.
Okay, Pat.
Okay, Jude.
Thanks very much.
Catch you later. Catch you later.